Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome, dear students, at the fourth stage at the College of Arts, the University of Mumbai, and this new lecture for translation. And as you remember, we finished chapter 1, and today, inshallah, we'll have an introduction about chapter 2, that is lexical problems. Lexical problems. Actually, the writer here gives an introduction about or telling us that we have we have many problems related to lexical relations, or the bigger the most part, or the biggest number of problems encountered by translation is related to problems with lexical relations. As remember, in the last year, when you studied linguistics, George Jules, there was a chapter related to semantics, and within that chapter there's a section is called Lexical Relations. And within that chapter, it's supposed that you have studied synonymy, antonymy, hyponymy, prototypes, homonymy, metonymy, plasemy, collocation. We have many items studied there last year. And yes, there was a problem. There was a problem with those relations. And today we'll study those relations in connection with translation. How to solve problems related to lexes, that is dictionary words, how to solve those problems in translation. So here the writer said the greater number of translation problems for students are lexical problems. And actually he says that the main point, or the main problem with those lexical relations, the main problem is that students simply students try to identify the meaning as they are within those meanings, individual meanings within sentences, without connecting those meanings with the other meanings within the sentence or the text as a whole. So they try to simply give literal translation, or sometimes word for word translations for words, word for word translation, and not even literal translation, word for word translation. And by combining the meanings of those words, they come out with the translation. And actually this is a big mistake in translation, when you just follow word for word translation without identifying the relation between words within the sentence. So here the writer says we have to differentiate between metaphorical and non-metaphorical meaning within the sentence. And actually he says that although any language is words in isolation, yes, the language is composed of words. The language is composed of words, but we will not understand that language by understanding those individual words. So we will understand the meanings of those words by combining them together in a certain context. So there are simply within languages, we are grammatical words which have no meanings but used for specific grammatical functions. Yes, we have verb to be, verb to do, verb to have. They are operators. They are just directing the sentences. They don't have meanings in themselves. For example, the auxiliary verb is or are. There's no specific meaning for those items, unless we put them within a context, so that they give a meaning for the whole sentence. And second, lexical words, which have, so we have grammatical words and lexical words which have meanings and make up language. Simply, they are verbs, adjectives, nouns, adverbs. Okay? Without those items, we cannot make any meaningful sentence. So among those words, okay, there's a relation. There is a relation, and we have to identify that relation before assigning meaning to them. So the relation between language and words is exactly like the relation between the human body and actually this is a good example. The relation between the language and words exactly is like the relation between the human body and its constituents. Yes, you have got a human body, but without those parts, you cannot have a human body. The interconnection among words does not always result in a new combination and a different indirect meaning of them. In fact, words can keep their direct literal meanings. Yes, sometimes, okay, but not all the times. Sometimes we have acceptable literal meanings for words in some sentences, as we will see later. Okay, we have direct literal meanings for words within sentences. Sometimes we have an acceptable literal translation for some sentences. Okay, so we have to accept this, but this does not apply to all the sentences in the language, as we will see later. So actually, this phrase is very important. A common mistake is committed by the students when they take literal translation to be applicable to everything in language. Actually, this is as we have seen in the past or the last semester, when we talked about types of translation, and actually we come across the literal translation, and we said it is sometimes completely unacceptable. Okay, and we have actually the writer here gives 3 groups of sentences, or sometimes expressions, just to identify the main idea. Yes, we have group A, wood floats on water. Answer my question, please. The children broke the window, etc. Group B, rainy day, sweet tongued, a can of worms, fabrication, ugly person. Enough is enough, tall order, fat salary, bite the dust, if you were in my shoes or boat. Okay, what's or the main idea that the writer tries to tell us is that, okay, the first group, okay, here literal translation is acceptable. We don't have a problem. Literal translation is acceptable. And the last group C, okay, literal translation is completely unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. So when try to, for example, we try to translate this expression, enough is enough, literally, okay, and we say يكفي هو يكفي. So what is the meaning? There's no meaning here. Meaning is zero, or zero meaning. Okay. If you were in my shoes or boat, لو كنت في sorry for this, لو كنت في حذائي أو لو كنت في مركبي أو زورقي. What's the meaning here? There is no meaning. So here in such type of expressions or sentences, literal translation is completely unacceptable. In between group B, yes, sometimes. So here we have to know that literal translation is completely unacceptable. So there should be either a pragmatic translation or idiomatic translation, okay, or free translation, okay, free translation sometimes. Okay, in this group B, yes, we can accept both methods of translation. Sometimes, okay, literal translation here, sometimes acceptable, and also free translation is acceptable. Okay, so students should be very careful in dealing with those expressions. So, as the note here, by comparing these three groups with one another, we notice that a direct translation is quite feasible. Okay, so direct translation, or sometimes literal translation, yes, it is acceptable. In a group C, this group, the last group, okay, literal translation is not possible. So we don't have a meaning here, zero meaning. Okay. In a group C, okay, it accepts both methods of translation. Okay. And here, those meanings are identified. Okay. As regard Group B, both literal and non-literal translations are possible, but not at the same time. That is, the types of text and context are essential to decide which translation to choose. So we have to be careful of the text and the context. And I think in the last semester, we talked about what's meant by a text and a context. For instance, in a sentence describing a day in winter, rainy day has one translation only. Today is sunny, but yesterday was rainy. Yes, it accepts direct translation. But يوم أسود here in this context is completely unacceptable. يوم أسود here in this context is completely unacceptable. But here in this sentence, save for a rainy day. Save for rainy day, literal or direct translation here is not acceptable. خبئ قرشك الأبيض ليومك الأسود أو وفر للشدة. Okay, we cannot say here وفر لليوم الماطر. Okay, the context does not accept this translation. Okay. And actually, the same thing applies to the other examples. The same thing applies to the other examples. Okay. And here we have a very important note. The discussion of these three groups of examples shows that literal translation is possible in a few cases, whereas in many other cases it is not. This means that literal translation is sometimes possible and applicable, sometimes not, which is still debatable anyway. Okay, so here what is the problem? The problem for students is that they think that everything in language can be translated literally, and this is actually a big problem. If you think that all expressions, all sentences, or well, let's say proverbs, all idiomatic expressions, all forms of some difficult grammatical structures can be translated literally, you are wrong. So we have to be very careful. This is very serious indeed. What is serious is to think that everything can be translated literally, because it results in many silly mistakes committed by them. He means students. Okay, so how to solve this problem? We have some solutions. First of all, giving as many examples as possible to confirm the impossibility of applying literal translation to everything. So just by reading as much as examples as possible, and you will try to find their equivalents in English. You will be able to identify the idea that literal translation is, for most cases, it is unacceptable. Okay, assuring the different nature of English and Arabic in various aspects. Yes, and we have also talked about this point in our lectures in the last semester, and we said that yes, English and Arabic differ in many. They have two different systems, two different cultures, two different ways of living, daily life, customs, habits, meals, geographical names. So we cannot apply literal translation. As we have said, yes, it is sometimes applicable, literal translation, but for most cases we have to to note that we have two different systems of language. Okay, two different languages. The third point, the necessity for understanding words in their special context. And actually we'll try to study this in the coming pages. So we have special meanings for some words, special meanings for some words in certain context, For example, if we have a collocation, I'll give a very simple example. When I say in collocation, okay, when I say a beautiful girl, but I cannot say a beautiful boy. I have to say a handsome boy. Okay. Well, let's say, but in Arabic, okay, فتاة جميلة وولد جميل. Okay, so we have to be careful. If we translate فتاة جميلة, okay, a beautiful girl, I cannot say a beautiful boy. I have to translate it into handsome boy. Okay. Concentrating for some time on fixed special expressions in English. Yes, we have lots of fixed expressions in English, such as idioms, proverbs, those figurative language that is metonymy, metaphor, and those actually fixed expressions. Yes, if we have also phrasal verbs, idioms, proverbs. Yes, as we have just discussed, collocations, which count in tens of thousands, and resist those fixed expressions resist literal translation. Okay. And here, actually, a very long discussion about how sometimes word for word translation for some sentences is completely unacceptable. Yes, it helps to identify the meaning, but it is, for the most of the time, it is unacceptable. Okay. Yes, we'll go directly to the first problem, or first lexical problem, and we'll try to discuss it in addition to the solution that is possible for this problem. So the first problem within lexical problems is the translation of synonymy. So what's synonymy? Actually, we have here a definition. It is sameness in meaning. So two words have similar meanings. Similarity of meaning between two or more. So maybe you have more than two words. Okay, so such words described as synonymous or synonyms. For example, we have words such as big, large, huge. We have, for example, also giant. We have colossal. So all these, okay, refer to the same meaning. And actually, even the word same here is hard to say, because most linguists would say that we don't have 100% two words in English or in the language with clearly identical meanings. There must be a difference of some sort in meaning between the two words, or maybe more than two words. So actually I don't agree with the author, but we have to abide by the textbook, okay, when he says here absolute synonymy, so 100% or clear or identical meanings of words. Okay, we have a difference. Sometimes we cannot exchange the meanings of those words. We cannot exchange the meaning of those words. So we don't actually, according to most linguists, we don't have absolute synonyms. But here we have to abide by the textbook. Okay, we would say that we have two types of synonyms. We have absolute synonyms, so words which are perfectly identical in meaning. And near or close, yes, I agree with this. Near or close synonyms. So yes, there's a similarity, some sort of similarity between the meanings of those words. And actually, this is a problem. This is a problem in translation. This is a problem in translation, as we will see now. So yes, the author here, to identify the main problem with synonymy, okay, gives a list of sentences. The following is a discussion of 4 major problems. So within synonym, within translating synonymy, as we will see now, we have 4 major problems. The first one is the translation of synonyms of emotive charge. And actually he gives here 15 or 16 16 sentences. He's angry, he's discomforted, okay, he's furious, he is enraged, outraged, he is worried, he is nervous, yes, until he is exacerbated, or here he is bothered. So we have 16 synonyms for one and the same meaning of anger. So all those meanings, okay, discomforted, angry, annoyed, disturbed, bothered, inconvenient, agitated, furious, okay, etc., until bothered or exacerbated, all leads to the meaning of anger. All leads to the meaning of anger. So all those words have the meaning of anger. All of these words have the meaning of anger. And even, yes, it means غضب in Arabic. Okay, and they are not exhaustive. So we have other meanings that leads to the main meaning of anger. So the list, we have another words referring to the meaning of anger in English. Okay, they form together what's called lexical set or lexical field of anger. So we have 16 different words in English and 14 words equivalent to them in Arabic. You see, 16 different words in English and we have 14 equivalents in Arabic. And actually he says that this is a precision in the translation is precise, دقيق. Okay, we have Okay, what's called as precision of translation. However, what's the problem? Is that it's hard task for them to find the precise synonymous word in Arabic. Yes, it's there in English, but the problem is with the translation. The problem is with translation. So how to solve this problem? Actually, the writer here says, if you have got such a problem, okay, you can just make this figure. Okay, so we have here levels. Okay, levels, starting with very angry, and at the middle angry, and at the lower part little angry. So غاضب جدا, غاضب, okay, and غاضب قليلا. Okay, so classifying those words into levels. And then what should we do? Okay, so in this scale, angry is considered as the central. Yes, angry is the central. And we have two other levels. Okay, so we have a little angry and very angry. Okay, so within little angry, by saying little angry, you have got those meanings. Nervous, worried, disturbed, discomforted, inconvenient, displeased, discontented, annoyed, bothered. Okay, and you can give those its equivalents in Arabic. غاضب قليلا, متوتر, قلق, منزعج, yes, as equivalents in Arabic. And then very angry. Okay, very angry, you have got those meanings. Impatient, agitated, enraged, furious, wrathed, exacerbated. غاضب جدا, نافذ الصبر, مضطرب, محتاج, ساخط, مشتاط, غضبا, مغتاظ, متأجج, غضبا, شديد الغضب. You see, غضب, okay, in Arabic. Okay, if you find the equivalent, and the equivalent meaning in when you check up the word in a dictionary, and you find the equivalent meaning, okay, there's no problem. Okay, there's no problem. But if you don't find the exact meaning or the precise meaning, you have got okay, some solutions. Okay, so when the students are unable to make such a distinction, they should resort to the general name of the whole set, that is anger. If you check the meaning and it's there within the dictionary, okay, there's no problem. If you don't, okay, you will resort to the main meaning, that is غضب, to the main meaning of غضب. So in this case, you have got 3 solutions ordered in this order. Okay, so the first, okay, what should you do to distinguish the precise equivalent word in Arabic? If you find, check the dictionary, and you find the word in Arabic, that's it. Okay, to distinguish, if you don't find, what should you do then? to distinguish the general level of meaning of the word and translate it into it. Okay, so we have here 3 levels. Okay, you have to try to find which in which level this word is given. Is it within غاضب جدا, غاضب, or غاضب قليلا? Okay, and the third resort, the third solution, is to translate any word in the same lexical set into the general title name of the set. So if you don't find, okay, you will just say غاضب or غضب. This is the last resort for this, or to solve this problem. The second problem. Okay, translating synonym concerns these synonyms which can be described as absolute in a certain context. Okay, so we have the second problem is that we have, as the writer here, and actually as I have said, I don't agree with this. He said we have identical words, and actually most linguists would say we don't have identical meanings of words. He says here, if you encounter such words like, for example, start, begin, commence, what should you do? Okay, what should you do? Yes, we will see here the solution, but first of all, in English there is no difference in meaning of these 3 words as verbs. However, they differ in other aspects. You see, here there is a difference. So in meaning, he says here, in meaning we don't have a difference, but they differ in some aspects. So there is a difference in meaning. Yes, here he tries to differentiate between the meanings of start, begin, and commence. Yes, they have يبدأ as in Arabic, but okay, actually there's a difference in meaning, and actually here we have a list of the differences in meaning. The differences, okay, you can just follow them one by one. Okay, we want to, yes, you have to check it. You have to find what's the difference. This is for you, good for you to find the difference among those words. Start, begin, commence. This is the difference between those words. Actually, we want to find the solution for this. We have actually, as he says, identical meanings. So how to solve this problem? Okay, so he says here we have an easy solution for students. He gives here three sentences. Just to exemplify, we started at 8 a.m. We began at a.m. and we commenced at 8 a.m. بدأنا. He gives here another example. Okay, it is about the obligation. We have must, ought to, should, have, has to, aim to, is to, are to. Okay, and we have there. Yes, he says they are identical synonyms, but actually they are not. There's a difference. There's a difference among those words according to the use within a grammatical structure. And he gives here some solutions. Yes. Actually, he notes here 3 points, and actually this is something very important. We have to note those 3 points. All the translations in Arabic express the meaning of contrast. Okay, he talked about those words, however, or yet, still, which says, he said, nevertheless, nonetheless, okay, which he says they have identical meanings. But he notes 3 points. All the translations in Arabic express the meaning of contrast. Therefore, anyone can be used to translate all the words in English in case other synonyms are not within reach for some reason. So they are, yes, we can exchange those meanings in Arabic, but in English, no, we cannot. 3 more translations are available in the Arabic and can equally translate all the English synonyms. غير أن, بيد أن, إلا أن. The more frequent translation of however is dropped because it is informal. على كل حال. Informal, okay, which actually used between friends or even colloquial, العامية, and therefore not advisable to use. So the problem of Synonyms here lies only in the student's ability to understand these words of contrast, especially confusion ones like having said that, which would be translated wrongly by many students as وبقولنا هذا وبما أننا ذكرنا ذلك. Okay, having said that. Okay. So how to solve this problem? Choose any word of contrast in Arabic, translate them. Okay, snakes are harmful, yet they can be useful. الأفاعي مؤذية إلا أنها أو بيد أنها لكنها مع ذلك ومع رغم ذلك يمكن أن تكون مفيدة. Okay. The third problem. Third problem here is that for the same item in English, okay, we have multiple, okay, we have synonyms in the translation. For the same item in English, its equivalent in Arabic, we have synonyms. Okay, to exemplify. Okay, we have this sentence: the soldiers stood to their guns in the battle. The soldiers stood to their guns in the battle. Okay, so we have all those صمد استبسل ثبت تشبت أظهر شجاعة تصدى تفانى ذاد عن استمات استرخص. All these, okay, to stood their guns. So the multiplicity of meaning, okay, or the synonyms is in the translation, not in the main text or the source language text. Okay, and all those sentences are acceptable. All those sentences are acceptable translation for this sentence. The soldiers stood to their guns. Okay, we have all those translations. And actually the difference among those translations is just a matter of style. It is just a matter of style. So all these are acceptable translations for the soldiers stood to their guns in the battle. Okay. What about the fourth problem? As for the fourth problem in translating synonyms, is that, as the author calls it, familiar alternatives. What's the problem with the familiar alternatives or البدائل المعروفة? Okay, they are informal. Okay, so when you check dictionaries, you'll not find them. Local. It's only known by people, for example, in a certain area of that country. Intimate and cordial nicknames, words or phrases used as substitutions for other formal ones. And he gives here some examples. The secure land or city for Mecca al-Mukarram. So البلد الأمين. Okay, so when the reader wants to check, okay, he's not from, for example, he's not Arabic, and when he check البلد, check up the meaning of البلد الأمين. بلد, secure land or city. He wouldn't know that it is Mecca al-Mukarramah. Though yes, in Arabic, yes, we are as Arabs, we know that البلد الأمين, okay, means Mecca al-Mukarramah. But what about the foreigner who is not an Arab? How could know that البلد الأمين is, though yes, they are similar in meaning, but for example البلد الأمين is local, okay, but this one is known مكة المكرمة. طيبة الطيبة. Okay, when a foreigner reads طيبة الطيبة and he wants to check the meaning of طيبة الطيبة, the dictionary meaning will not lead him to know that it is al-Madinah al-Munawwara, unless he asks somebody who's an Arab, who knows the Arabic language, and this is something local, only known by Arabs themselves. The sharp distinguisher, okay, al-Faruq, between truth and falsehood. Okay, al-Faruq. How could the foreigner knows that we mean by al-Faruq is the companion of the Prophet is Umar ibn al-Khattab? He couldn't know. Though Umar ibn al-Khattab, okay, has similarity in meaning with al-Faruq, okay, but it is something local. Okay. Sayfullah al-Maslul, Allah's drawn sword. So Sayfullah al-Maslul means Khalid ibn Walid. Okay, there's a similarity between, or there are synonyms. Khalid ibn Walid and Sayfullah al-Maslul, they are synonyms in Arabic. What about in English translation? Unless you give the meaning for the reader, the reader will not know that what's meant by Sayfullah al-Maslul is Khalid ibn al-Walid. Okay, and the same thing applies for the English terms. For example, Old Riki for the city of Edinburgh. Okay, when I check Old Riki in a dictionary, I'll not find in old dictionaries, not recent dictionaries. So we are talking about old dictionaries, not now. For example, you have got Google and those new new ways of communicating with people. You can ask, okay, but when you check up in some old dictionaries, for example, before 10 years, you'll not find a reference for old Riki. You'll find Edinburgh City, yes, but there's no relation between old Riki and Edinburgh. And the same thing applies to the other examples. So, what should the translator do? What should the translator do? Okay, he has to check. He has to check other sources. Oh, sorry, before that, okay. However, when the writer says, however, they create a problem for translation for students in two aspects. The difficulty to find them in general reference books. Okay, so when we check up their meanings in dictionaries, we will not find, for example, البلد الأمين. When you check, you will not find the meaning of البلد الأمين in those dictionaries as مكة المكرمة. And then when you find, when you find the meaning, the difficulty to understand their local connotations. And actually, this is another problem. How to know that البلد الأمين is okay when you find okay that البلد الأمين means Mecca. So what does it mean? Okay, you have to ask yourself. So why it's termed البلد الأمين? You have to check other references to know the reason why it's called البلد الأمين. And actually, there's a verse in the Holy Quran, والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين. So instead of saying Mecca, it is البلد الأمين. Yes. Actually, there's here some summation of problems. Okay, to sum up, the translation of synonymy is sometimes difficult and complicated. Sometimes some synonymous words, especially those with emotive charge, anger, fear, love, hatred, may have meaning of different levels each. The students of translation as well as translators are therefore required to take them into consideration in their Arabic translation. Nevertheless, synonym can be translated easily when the distinction between the levels of meanings is necessary and an important, only a term of general nature, expression of consent, contrast, surprise. Okay, you can go back and check those four problems, and actually this is a summation of those problems. Also the possibility of having several synonymous equally acceptable versions of translation, as the sentence with the soldiers stood to their guns is very often available, but with the same instructions, though, as will be demonstrated. Yes, the author will discuss this problem later. The tricky but interesting problem of translating familiar alternatives should be handled with care. So you have to be careful in translating those items into Arabic, for it is sensitive, cultural and local flavor and nature in language. So, generally speaking, and this is the final note here, and actually it's important. When accuracy, which means when you want to be precise in translation, the translation of synonymy becomes more difficult and delicate. So you have to pay a special attention. Yet with more care and concentrated efforts by teachers, students of translation and translation, it's hoped that this accuracy in the translation of synonymy can be achieved. So you have to be careful. You have to check those problems and how they are solved. Okay, you have got four points: the problem and the suggested solution. Okay, by this we will end our lecture, and we still have just one lecture. Okay, we'll try to discuss the translation of Pelasami and Manasami. Okay, Pelasami and Pelasami. Until that time, okay, I hope this lecture finds you well, you and your family, and best of luck for you, and see you inshallah in the next lecture. Thank you very much for your listening. Thank you and goodbye.